Roundel designs media experiences and solutions that connect 165 million plus target guests with the brands they love. Through tailored partnerships and data-driven strategies, they deliver impactful results that elevate campaigns, maximize reach, and drive growth, ensuring brands are present in all the right moments and central to helping target guests discover the joy of everyday life. Discover how Roundel maximizes campaign results by visiting roundel.com.
More and more people are deciding to order a non-alcoholic beer every day, but which brand they choose is another decision. Athletic Brewing is determined to make it theirs, expanding availability to more places where people consume beer, restaurants, bars, stadiums, and concerts, and supporting that with new advertising that encourages consumers in those spaces to ask for Athletic by name. Andrew Katz is Athletic's Chief Marketing Officer, and he joins us today to discuss the road ahead for the brand on the Marketer's Brief, our weekly discussion of marketing news and trends that have the industry buzzing. Behind Gen Z preferences and health and wellness movement, non-alcohol is leading the growth story in beer, with Athletic accounting for up to 20% of beer category sales at some retailers. Now the company is looking for more beer occasions. A newly signed agreement with Live Nation puts Athletic beers in 113 concert venues. Athletic is also focused on chef partnerships, food pairings, and tavern tap handles. These types of collaborations help normalize non-alcohol beer so that it becomes a part of the repertoire of its drinkers, says Katz. We'll also discuss the increasingly competitive landscape in non-alcohol and what it means now that the mighty Michelob Ultra has joined the battle. I'm John Springer, senior reporter at Ad Age, and this is the Marketer's Brief podcast. Andrew Katz, welcome to the Marketer's Brief.
Hey, John, I'm glad to be here.
Well, we're glad you came with us. Before we get started, we're going to talk about Athletic Brewing and the explosive non-alcohol beer market that you've pioneered here. But before we do, let's talk a little bit about yourself. I know you were a former Pepsi marketer. You've been with Heineken. Where else? How did you end up with Athletic?
Yes, you have all of that correct. I also spent some time at American Express. I had done my own entrepreneurial startup called Instructor, which was in the fitness technology space. But how I got to Athletic was actually a really cool story, which is I was running a half marathon and, finished the race. It was a super hot day, really humid. And I came across this tent for Athletic Brewing Company, which I'd never heard of. And I was working at Heineken at the time. And lo and behold, Bill Schufelt behind the sampling table. He had also run the marathon or half marathon. And he and I just ended up having some beers, talking about racing. And a couple of years later, I got a call about a startup in the non-alcoholic beer space. And Bill and I got reacquainted. And it was just such a cool way to have met one of the co-founders. And it felt like, oh, I know this brand. I know this guy. What a great start to this conversation.
Yeah, and that would have been what, about 4 years ago, a little more than that?
Yeah, I think it was 2018 or 2019.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been a pretty incredible run since then. And, there's been much kind of talk about sort of the origin story of Athletic. And here we'd like to talk about a little bit about where it's going. And so we talked for a moment of this before we got on here about sort of the difference between kind of getting things started and getting things scaled. And I wonder if we can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, the business has matured so much since I've been here. It's been about 3.5 years. We're in all 50 states. We're at Walmart and Target and Whole Foods and Trader Joe's. So we're really significantly more available than when I first started. We also have our own D2C business, which is very unusual for a beer company. We're now the number one beer brand family in America, which is really exciting. We have about 20% of the category dollars and is growing over 30%, outgrowing the rest of the category, which is growing at about 21%. I think a lot of that is just attributable to the fact that we are a pure play. We're very maniacally focused and single-minded about what we do and how we go to market. And we just have an incredible product. I think I have the really good fortune as a marketer to be marketing a product that ultimately sells itself.
So you talked about being the number one beer brand family. Who was the former number one?
I think the former number one probably was the ABI family. They really were the originators. If you go all the way back 30 plus years to O'Doul's, that really was kind of the start of the NA, modern NA category, because near beer was born out of the temperance movement and prohibition. Like you'd have to go way back because that was okay to do way back when.
Fascinating. And there, what athletics really been able to do, and I wonder if you can kind of talk a little bit about the sort of secret sauce behind this, but is to sort of make NA beer aspirational, whereas some of those other maybe predecessors kind of carried a little bit of a reputation with them as subpar beer. And that it's not just that, right? It's there's a little bit of aspiration that you've been able to bring to the category.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I mean, Bill and John, when they started the company, really, I think they set about to just brew amazing beer, right? The fact that it doesn't have alcohol in it is sort of an outgrowth of this passion for brewing great beer. And there's no higher compliment than when we get in front of consumers and we're sampling product, which I love to do, and people try it for the first time and they go, "Oh my God, this tastes like beer. This tastes amazing." And really that's we want to have all of the same rituals that you do when you're beer has always been a very communal, very savory and satisfying beverage. So we didn't want to circumvent that in any way. We talk about without compromise, and we don't want to compromise the experience, the taste, the any of that. And that's really where we are right now.
How would you describe the customer base at this time?
Yeah, so I mean, we are continuing to grow. I mean, as a brand, part of that is through our distribution. Part of it is category trend, right? More and more people are interested in alternatives to alcohol. And our core consumer was really me when the company started was people who are running road races, people who are doing Spartans and Ragnars and Ironman and Iron Women. And it was really more, I'd say, like hardcore active lifestyle. We've evolved that because while that's always going to be core to who we are, that's not enough of an audience to continue to scale and talking about scaling. So we've really started to branch out into a lot of adjacent categories. Music, we just signed a really big 3-year deal with Live Nation. So we're going to be at over 113 of their venues. We're going to be at 4 of their festivals. And it's a way for us to meet consumers where they are, even though that's probably beaten to death, that saying. We're going to meet the consumer where they are. But anyway, we're going to go out to music festivals and venues and amphitheaters, and we will be for sale, we'll be sampling, and it's really a way for us to start to get athletic into the repertoire of drinkers so that it's just another thing that they're drinking. It's not a big deal. It's just I'm either going to be zebra striping, I'm going to have a regular beer and an athletic, or tonight I'm the designated driver, I'm not going to have anything, or I've got a big meeting tomorrow, or I have an early morning workout. I want to participate, I want to be social, but I don't necessarily want alcohol tonight. So there's a lot of different use cases for how we show up. So that's one, music. We're also doing a lot with chefs and food pairing. We go great. We're at I forget the exact number, but I think we're at probably 50% or more of a lot of the Michelin star restaurants in the US because we do go amazingly well with great food. So food is also an area of interest where the brand is showing up. And then really our core is our community. So we're still going out to races. Cans in hands, liquid to lips is still very paramount to getting the brand out into the world.
Yeah, so it's still growing, right? I mean, there's a long way to go, right? Wouldn't you say?
I hope so. I mean, like we do have like there's some leading indicators where, we're 20% of total beer in certain of our leading retailers. So like that to us is how big can this thing get? We think it can get that big nationally. But it's going to take it's not we're not going to be an overnight sensation. I think this is things like the category people come to on their own. And then when they discover us, we get into their repertoire and we do become just part of what they're drinking, in beer occasions. And then also we can be in non-beer occasions. A lot of people talk about athletic at lunch. I'd love to have something savory with my burger and fries, and athletic really hits a spot and I can go back to work and be, completely fine.
Yeah, I understood what you're talking about with getting it into concert venues or into restaurants or what have you. It wasn't long ago when you would ask. I have this personal experience myself going to a bar and ask, "Do you have an NA beer?" And they go, we have any beer. What beer? Which one do you want? But
Yeah,
not only non-alcohol beers.
it's
So
funny. It's funny you say that. 'Cause I just want to jump in on that for 1 second because we launched a campaign with that insight exactly, which is why do people have to ask for NA beer? Can't they just ask for athletic? And so we launched a campaign called "It's Athletic, Ask for It." And so we want to just make that ask so simple. It's a great bar call. I think when Bill and John were really designing this brand, they always thought about, well, what's the bar call going to be? And now we're really asking consumers, like, don't even bother asking for any beer anymore because A, it can be confusing because they think you're asking for any beer. It's just ask for athletic. It's that simple.
yeah, are you still running up with that program, or you moved on to something else?
Yeah, no, we just launched new creative this year to kick off Dry January, aka Athletic January. And it's really just these real world scenarios. People are at a convenience store, people at a stadium, people at a bar. And the expert in that scenario, whether it's the person behind the counter, the waiter or waitress, the beer hawker, they're in the know and they're basically telling that person, oh, you mean athletic. And it's like, yeah, athletic.
We're with Andrew Katz, CMO of Athletic Brewing. We're going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Roundel designs media experiences and solutions that connect 165 million plus target guests with the brands they love. Through tailored partnerships and data driven strategies, they deliver impactful results that elevate campaigns, maximize reach, and drive growth, ensuring brands are present in all the right moments and central to helping target guests discover the joy of everyday life. Discover how Roundel maximizes campaign results by visiting roundel.com.
We're back with Andrew Katz of Athletic Brewing. Andrew, do you have a sense of how big the non-alcohol market can be? And how far along are you in that space?
So, like I was mentioning before, we look at some other markets outside of the US, how big it can be. And there are some European markets that are as big as 10 and 20% of total beer. So we use that as sort of a marker for ourselves as how big could this be? It's interesting also, as you're well aware, a lot of the big brewers in the US are now in the business of non-alcoholic beer. So whether that's Mick Ultra or Corona or Heineken, so I think that helps to actually legitimize the category. I think we actually love the fact that they're in the space because it helps to bring more attention, more dollars, more shelf space to the category. And there's still a lot of education that's required, frankly, for consumers about why non-alcoholic beer, I don't get it. So they will help us to explain that. We don't necessarily have to be the ones. And then also just that social stigma of, well, why aren't you drinking? Right? That's still a question a lot of people get. And as that behavior becomes normalized, as more people are drinking, mixing back and forth between alcohol and non-alcohol, it's no longer really going to be a question that people get asked.
Okay, Ultra getting into it is a little interesting, I think, from a positioning standpoint, given what we were talking about with equity in road racing and athletic events that you have, and Ultra's been involved, of course, with a sort of active lifestyle messaging for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the competitive tension of having these bigger brands come in, it's great because it really does help to bring new users into the category. We have a ton of confidence in how good our product is and how low our calories are. Like Athletic Light has 25 calories, 5 grams of carbs. So we know we've got really like strong proposition that really delivers on the
Mhm.
experience and the flavor, but also there's other benefits beyond just no alcohol. It's like our calorie counts are dramatically lower than most conventional beer products. And with respect to Mick Ultra, I mean, look, I think all the big brewers find themselves in a bit of a tough spot because they can't sell against themselves, right? Because they don't want to denigrate their alcoholic portfolio, which is dramatically bigger. In most cases, 94, 95, 96% of what they sell has alcohol in it. So they're in a bit of a tough spot. And again, I think in a lot of cases they're just trading occasions. They're not necessarily accretive to their portfolio. Whereas for us, everything is accretive. All new users for us are new users.
Yeah. And are you looking to any particular groups of consumers as your new users? Any group that you're trying to reel in particular?
Yeah, I think, again, traditional beer has largely ignored women, has not done a very good job communicating to female drinkers. We make a strong point of trying to reach female drinkers. About 55% of our portfolio is male and 45% female. So we also are innovating in ways that are trying to attract also beyond beer. So we have a cocktail inspired beer product that's phenomenal. And we are able to test a lot of these things on our e-commerce platform and see what kind of a reaction or response we get. And so thus far, those have proven to be really incremental because it's bringing new users to Athletic Brewing.
Okay, and that kind of dovetails with something I was going to ask you here, which was, to what degree do you find Athletic is subject to the same sort of challenges that the larger beer industry faces? And one of them I was thinking, we're hearing a lot about now is how beer has sort of lost its place as the entry market for alcohol drinkers. Would that suggest that Athletic should do a non-beer, non-alcohol beverage?
We are brewers at heart. We have two of our own breweries, soon to have a third one in San Diego, but we brew beer. And I think beer has withstood the test of time. It's been around for thousands and thousands of years. I do think that perception wise, beer has not done itself a lot of services in terms of like making it more accessible, making it more relatable. And we at the core of how we market is we go out and we sample the product. And I think the best advertising in the world is not going to convince somebody that this is a product for them. And that's why, we've always leaned into experiential types of marketing behavior because it's so important to like meet people, talk to them, have conversations with them, get them to try the product. And those things are really instrumental in the growth of athletic brewing to this point.
Yeah, and you're also sort of defying the trends, I think, facing the larger craft industry. I guess we consider you to be a craft brewer, right? And there's been a lot said about sort of the backlash against IPAs or what have you, but I believe that's one of your best sellers.
Yeah. So like I was saying, I think the total package of what we're offering is bigger than just non-alcoholic. Our calorie counts are dramatically lower. And I do think like as people start to think about, wow, that pack's like that's a 200 calorie IPA, you begin to rethink
Hmm.
things. Ours on average have, 65, 70 and below in terms of calorie count. So people are thinking more holistically. And I think again, that's where maybe some of the bigger brewers are very obsessed with NA. I think we're thinking more broadly in terms of lifestyle, in terms of where does this fit beyond just it doesn't have alcohol in it.
Gotcha. So what are your priorities as you look at let's say the rest of this year and next?
So, it's no secret that we're in a bit of uncertainty in the world right now. And so I think navigating through that is just we have a really good plan in front of us and we just it's really about executing the plan and not getting distracted by the things we can't control. We have this big deal with Live Nation that I'm super excited about and really proud to be partnering with them and making cans available and product available at live music events is going to be core to what we're doing, getting out and supporting road races and continuing to drive our distribution and educating consumers about this is where athletic fits into your life. So I don't think it's a radical departure from where we've been. I think it's a lot more of the same and trying not to get too complicated.
Yeah. I mean, that said, will anything surprise us in the year ahead? What can we what
I
can we sort of look forward to?
I don't know that we're a shock and awe kind of a brand. I think that what might surprise you is where we show up. All in, we're in over 415 venues across the US. We're at all major retailers. We are making a big push in draft. So on premise is really important to us, and we have an incredible draft product. And ordering an NA draft will hopefully surprise a lot of people. They'll taste it and they'll be blown away by how good Run Wild is on draft.
How is it performing as a tap handle?
It's performing extremely well. Our off-premise dollars are up over 53% year to date. I'm gonna have to get back to you on like the actual growth of our draft, but I want to say it's like triple digit percent growth versus year ago.
Wow, tremendous. So, what's the thing that other brands could learn from Athletic?
I think that community really is so core to who Athletic is, and really never forgetting who your real true fans are. Yes, you need to expand, you need to reach new consumers, but you can never leave your core customer behind because they're who got you to where you are today. And supporting that, whether that's through our Two for the Trails program, which is our grant-based program where we give 2% of our sales up to $2 million every year to community organizations that are making outdoor spaces more accessible, right? Like that is a differentiator for us. Being a B Corp and living the values of, being a good corporate citizen and steward is really important to who we are. And then we have this core of over 1,600 ambassadors that really help us to get the word out. Word of mouth has really been so instrumental to the growth of Athletic, and just never forgetting that your true fans are the best marketers you're ever going to get.
Yeah, that's great. And how about a brand that you learned from? Anything that you admire out there, a company or campaign?
So I often look at Red Bull as sort of a company and a brand that if we could be like Red Bull, they've been amazing at one thing, which is energy. They have, continued to grow year over year over year. They've remained private. And I think that they are just very clear about who they are as a brand. And there have been many entrants and big ones that came into that space and continue. And yet they've stayed the course. And I just think they're just such a good role model for a lot of brands. And their founder once said, when asked the question, like, who's your competition? And his answer was along the lines of indifference, right? Like people don't know or don't care about my brand. That's who my competition is. And I subscribe to that.
Yeah, that's great. Red Bull surprised us with a Super Bowl ad this year, so maybe we'll see something from you guys soon on that, right?
I have no comment on that, John.
Well, with that, Andrew, we're out of time. Andrew Katz, CMO of Athletic Brewing, thanks so much for joining us.
John, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
That was Andrew Katz, Chief Marketing Officer at Athletic Brewing. And I'm John Springer, Senior Reporter at Ad Age. I'd like to thank our producer, Lauren Ciardio, and remind you that you can subscribe to The Marketer's Brief wherever you get your podcasts. That's all for this week. Thanks for listening.
Marketer's Brief listeners get $40 off an adage.com subscription. Sharpen your marketing edge and visit adage.com/brief for your discount.